Why would the world's second largest economy risk a war that could crash the global economy? Why would a country with 1.4 billion people, a nuclear arsenal, and the largest army on Earth fixate on an island smaller than the state of Maryland? And why do American warships keep sailing through the Taiwan Strait and nearby international waters, a move Beijing strongly objects to, knowing exactly what that provocation means? The answer isn't just history. It isn't just politics. It's power. It's identity. And it's one of the most dangerous, unresolved standoffs in human history. A civil war that technically never ended, now sitting at the center of a rivalry between the two most powerful countries on Earth. This is the story of Taiwan, and why the next crisis in that strait could change the world. Almost every day, Chinese fighter jets and warships operate near Taiwan. Taiwan scrambles its own forces in response. American ships regularly sail through the Taiwan Strait, deliberately, visibly, as a message. One mistake, one miscalculation, one missile fired by accident. That's all it could take. To understand why the world is here, you have to go back to a war that most people have forgotten. A war that, technically, never ended. For most of history, Taiwan barely registered. It was a frontier island, a distant outpost. The Qing dynasty controlled it from 1683, but treated it the way an empire treats a place it doesn't particularly value. Present on the map, easy to forget. Then China lost a war with Japan in 1895. As part of the peace settlement, the Qing dynasty handed Taiwan over. For the next 50 years, Taiwan was a Japanese colony. Then Japan lost World War II. In 1945, Taiwan was handed back to the Chinese nationalist government, led by a general named Chiang Kai-shek. That should have been the end of the story. But China was already tearing itself apart. And what happened next created the standoff the world is still living with today. For decades, two forces had been fighting for control of China. The nationalists, known as the KMT, led by Chiang Kai-shek, and the communists, led by Mao Zedong. They paused their war to fight Japan together. The moment Japan surrendered, they went straight back to fighting each other. By 1949, the communists were winning. Decisively. City after city fell, and on October 1st, 1949, Mao Zedong stood in Tiananmen Square and declared the People's Republic of China. Chiang fled. He took 500,000 soldiers, 2 million civilians, and the entire contents of China's national treasury and sailed to Taiwan. He declared Taipei the temporary capital of the real China. Here is the fact that changes everything. No peace treaty was ever signed. The Chinese Civil War never officially ended. It just moved across 180 kilometers of water. Beijing has never stopped treating Taiwan as a renegade province. Not a foreign country, not an independent state. A piece of China that got away. And they intend to get it back. Beijing's position has never changed in 75 years. Taiwan is China, full stop. In 2005, China made that position law, passing the Anti-Secession Act, which legally authorizes the use of military force if Taiwan ever formally declares independence, or if Beijing decides peaceful reunification has become impossible. But this goes deeper than law. The Chinese Communist Party was built on one foundational promise, ending what it calls the century of humiliation. 100 years of foreign powers carving up Chinese territory, the Opium Wars, the unequal treaties, the Japanese invasions. Taiwan is the last open wound from that era. A Chinese leader who loses Taiwan doesn't just lose an island. He loses the entire legitimacy of the communist project. Every Chinese leader since Mao has understood this. None of them can be the one who gave Taiwan away. That's not a political calculation. It's an existential one. Here is something that often gets lost in the debate. Taiwan has its own elected government, its own military, its own currency, and its own passport. It has functioned as a self-governing democracy for decades. Beijing rejects this as evidence of statehood. Taiwan governs itself independently in practice. And Taiwan has watched what happened to Hong Kong. In 1997, Britain handed Hong Kong back to China under a framework called One Country, Two Systems, a promise that Hong Kong would keep its own laws, its own courts, its own freedoms for 50 years. By 2020, many observers argued that the promised autonomy had been fundamentally eroded after Beijing imposed a sweeping national security law. Many critics argue the framework was substantially weakened well before the promised 50 years were up. Taiwan watched all of this happen in real time. Today, support for reunification in Taiwan sits at historic lows. Most Taiwanese people, especially younger ones, don't identify as Chinese. They identify as Taiwanese. They have built their own democracy, their own culture, their own identity across 75 years of separation. They watched Hong Kong. They drew their conclusion. Here is the part most people never hear. Taiwan isn't just important because of history or identity. It sits at the center of something military planners call the first island chain. Look at a map. Running from Japan down through Taiwan to the Philippines is a line of islands that acts like a natural fence around China's access to the Pacific Ocean. Right now, China's navy is largely contained behind that line. To reach the open Pacific, to project real power across the ocean, Chinese ships and aircraft have to pass through narrow choke points that American and Allied forces can monitor and, if necessary, block. Taiwan sits at the center of that fence. If China controlled Taiwan, that fence would have a massive hole in it. Chinese submarines, aircraft carriers, and long-range bombers would have direct access to the Pacific, changing the entire military balance in Asia overnight. This is why American military planners lose sleep over Taiwan. It's not just an island. It's a strategic position that determines who controls the most important ocean on Earth. And then there is the thing that makes this everybody's problem. There is one company on the island of Taiwan that makes the modern world run. It's called TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. TSMC makes the chips inside your phone, your laptop, your car, your medical equipment. In 2025, TSMC served 534 customers and manufactured over 12,000 different products for companies across the world. It produces roughly 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductors, the chips that nothing cutting-edge can be built without. There is no substitute ready today. The United States is spending billions trying to build its own chip manufacturing capacity. Europe and Japan are doing the same. But right now, if TSMC stopped operating, the global technology supply chain would seize up within months. No advanced chips means no new AI servers, no new fighter jets, no new smartphones, no new guided missiles. This is why Taiwan is called the Silicon Shield. The theory is simple. Taiwan is so essential to the global economy that no major power can afford to let it be destroyed. Not even China, which depends on Taiwanese chips for its own technology industry. But that cuts both ways. Whoever controlled Taiwan would gain enormous influence over one of the world's most important advanced semiconductor manufacturing hubs. China knows it, America knows it, and both sides are preparing for the possibility that the other one acts first. A civil war that never officially ended. A democracy that governs itself but can't be formally recognized. An island sitting at the center of the world's most important military geography. And a semiconductor company that the entire global technology industry depends on. Its consequences would be felt around the world through trade, technology, financial markets, and security alliances that stretch from Tokyo to London to Washington. For more than 75 years, the world has avoided the confrontation everyone feared.
The question isn't whether Taiwan matters. The question is whether the next crisis is the one that changes history. History doesn't always begin with a declaration of war. Sometimes it begins with one decision, in one narrow stretch of water, that the rest of the world can't ignore.